Hey folks, what's flocking? I hope you are doing well. So today, I'm gonna talk about Mamamax. He's been trending on my YouTube and Twitter feed for the past few days. I don't even know who he is, but apparently he did some really tweaked out shit here, and it's making him the topic for everyone this week. There's a lot of stuff surrounding this Mamamax guy. There's like 1 hour documentaries from Mudahar, FPS Diesel, Nicholas DeOrio talking about him, saying that his pedo hunter videos are just publicity stunts and that he's pushing for the sexual survivor algorithm onto others and not actually giving a shit about the survivors. Going to deep learning of this guy and talking about all that he did to go down the shitter. But for me, though, I'm only gonna talk about what is most important because I would be so fucking burned out if I did an hour-long documentary on this. I'm just gonna talk about what's important, okay? If there's anything I missed at all in this, please tell me in the comments. I'm trying to get a simple understanding myself without getting several migraines because I surely would at this point. Mamamax is like this pedophile hunter on the internet. He'll use social media networking or social games to expose the pedophiles over the internet and stuff like that. Recently, he's been investigating this vampire werewolf cult thing, and there's a whole ton of info surrounding it. There's like fucking 10 hours of this whole situation, so I'm gonna use a more simplified version from Slime Beast here. Shout out to you, man, and please don't copyright strike me. Lord knows Mamamax might beat you to the finish line with that. So there's this Spencer girl that ran away from home to go live with this Camden guy. She was 16 at the time of this event, and Camden was 18, and Camden was abusive to her in all aspects: physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually. That's just horrible, man. And this Camden guy was claiming that he was a werewolf god, vampire god, some mythical monster or something. He tried to get Spencer and his other friends to believe that they were werewolves and that they were being hunted by outside forces, and tried to get others to join his cult of werewolves and vampires. Then Spencer ran away from Camden and went back to live with her family. This is pretty fucked up, not gonna lie. Whatever this Camden guy had in his mindset to believe he was a vampire or werewolf, I don't know. Maybe he's not right in the head and he watched too many horror movies or that Supernatural TV show. I can't give an exact reason why he did it, but Spencer was vulnerable to this. She was 16 at the time, mind you, and they had missing posters up for her safe return. This 18-year-old guy was getting younger kids to join his cult. For what reason? I don't even want to know, man. Vampire werewolf cult sounds very horrific in my opinion. So this situation happened in 2016, and Mamamax decided to talk about the situation with the Spencer girl in 2023, talking about all the bad things Cameron did to her when they were together in the cult. I will admit this, I am really uneducated on this werewolf cult or whatever, but I just want to say, this situation is pretty serious in its context, given that this woman was abused sexually and mentally. You would think that they would have this guy in jail already, either Mamamax or the FBI. This happened in 2016, mind you, and Mamamax is still holding on to this rope of his to make sure that justice is dealt by any means necessary. I'm not kidding when I say by any means necessary, because he talks to the other victims of Camden that were involved in the cult, and they were leaking their personal info of not just him, but also his family, his mother, and brother's names, and where they live as well. The YouTube commentator Lyrics got on call with Mamamax to correct if the doxing of Camden's family was true or not, but Mamamax says differently. And please don't copyright strike me too, Lyrics. I like your content as well, bro.
But allows his guests to dox Camden's mother and brother's name in hopes that his chat would find them and get answers out of them. And when I personally asked him if he has any evidence of the mother or brother being involved whatsoever in Camden's crimes, he admits he doesn't at all.
You don't have any proof that they're even involved, right?
Like the mom didn't help out Camden with his potential abuse to these kids, or the brother. Like, you can't prove either of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mamamax, I can understand why you want info on this Camden pedophile and give justice for these victims of the cult. But going as far to dox the mother and the brother? Like, what did they have to do with the situation? Either they could be hiding Camden away or don't even have any involvement with this baloney, yet when Lyrics asked you if they were, you couldn't confirm because you didn't know. Now those people are going to be harassed by uneducated people that just go on a bias against them. And he doesn't even know the extent to how involved they are in. They're probably going to get more involved now with the doxing and the imminent harassment campaign from Mamamax's fans. I'll say this again. I am uneducated on the whole vampire sex cult thing. That's why I had to use Lyrics' clip. But given that Mamamax is supposed to be this pedophile hunter and tries to expose the horrible people, I wouldn't be surprised if his fan base was going out on witch hunts against them. Pedos are terrible, and this Camden guy should be locked away forever, but the family shouldn't deserve to be the butt of this situation as well. Now they're gonna get involved, and you can thank Mamamax for it. Now here's the other part that gets talked about as well, for the most part. When this vampire sex cult situation was being talked about a month ago or two, Mamamax decided that he wanted to get this algorithm going of the whole stories of being aware about pedophilia, sex trafficking, etc. So he came out with this video called Brainwash Your Influencers. Trigger warning.
Descendants, welcome to God Cult. As your first command, I kindly ask you to share Spencer's story with the following. We want you.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. Trigger warning is right. I feel like I'm gonna get an epileptic seizure. So that's Mamamax's agenda here, getting his God cult, quote unquote, with the viewers to go talk to these big content creators like PewDiePie, Mr. Beast, Joe Rogan, H3H3 to get them to talk about the awareness of the horrible world of pedophilia and predatory behavior. Like, what is this movement gonna do? At this point, it's just gonna guilt trip the creators into talking about this situation that they don't even know what it's about. If you ask me, Mamamax could have been spending this much time trying to take the stories like Spencer's here and tell it to the police. You know, someone that actually takes pedophilia crimes very seriously. I know Mamamax takes the topics he discusses very seriously given the context, but come on, man, not everyone wants to talk about the vampire sex cult situation. That doesn't mean the algorithm is gonna die out forever, especially since Mamamax has, well, he had a growing fan base of people that understand his algorithm and want it to spread it, but his sub count is going down as we speak. As for the brainwashing the influencers thing, well, it got to the point where Mamamax tried to reach out to Moist Critical, of all people, to get him to talk about the situation. At that time, the Sniper Wolf doxing drama was happening, but Mamamax didn't care what Moist Critical was talking about. He wanted Charlie to talk about the vampire sex cult story. But during that time, Charlie had COVID, and understandably, he didn't have time for it.
Yeah, so here, you want me to talk about it a little bit? That rubbed me the wrong way. Apparently, when I had COVID, he messaged me a couple times and I never saw it. and now he's taken that as me ghosting him and ignoring his very important mission. And it really rubs me the wrong way.
So yeah, Charlie just straight up admits that he didn't even read Mamamax's DMs in the Discord because this is Moist Critical we're talking about. This is the best YouTuber of all time. And when Mamamax thought that he was being ghosted, he made a video where he thought the whole Sniper Wolf drama was just an excuse for the biggest creators to not talk about the vampire sex cult situation that they probably didn't even know about it to begin with, and he captioned it, reacting to the reactions of SSS Sniper Wolf's actions.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
So yeah, Mamamax got pretty upset that he thought Charlie ghosted him, and putting this emphasis on that talking about the Sniper Wolf drama or anything that isn't relevant to the vampire sex cult or the sex trafficking or pedophilia or whatever is the reason you are part of the problem, for having your position as a big content maker to not talk about it. And that's guilt tripping again, I swear to God. I can respect the fact that he wants to spread awareness for the sexually abused victims, but forcing it onto others? That's just not the right way, man. Just because people don't talk about it as much, or let alone a big person in a powerful seat talks about it, doesn't mean it's not an issue. I can understand that Spencer is a victim of sexual abuse, but why do they need to put so much emphasis to make this situation bigger than it needs to be? Like, imagine if there was a victim of Camden's horrific acts that didn't want to come forward to Mamamax, but the other victims told about their info to him while he was doing his thing. What do they do then? Do they get a traumatic flashback from the past by a toxic fan base full of uneducated or unsympathetic people that say they care about all the victims, but they won't leave one the fuck alone? I don't know if it would be real, but given the demeanor, I could see it happen. Anyways, yesterday or 2 days ago, he came out with an apology video about the Camden werewolf vampire sex cult situation and trying to force his movement onto other big creators like Moist Critical. Well, let's see if he's bullshitting or not.
Just completed a 30-minute video called Silencing All Survivors that addresses pretty much everything. It addresses criticisms. It addresses my approach. It includes apologies. It includes a call to action on Camden. I showed it to some trusted friends and the survivors. Some people loved it. Some people had a few criticisms, and then some people hated it. I've got people telling me just talk about the case and nothing else. I've got people telling me just address the criticisms. I've got people telling me just apologize. I feel like I'm being pulled in every which way, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot make everyone happy.
My God, man, he's shivering in his coat about how he's supposed to apologize to everyone. Talk about the case, talk about Charlie, just apologize. All he's thinking about right now is how he can do this without losing his reputation. Like, I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think you can come back from this one because you handled both of the troubles very, very terribly. I can maybe sympathize on why you want to talk about the vampire sex cult because you want to spread awareness of this kind of problem, but making a video mocking other content makers that don't even know about this situation and pretty much clickbaiting people into being guilt tripped into talking about something that we don't know all that well.
I don't want any I don't want beef with anyone. Like I want to communicate openly. I'm trying to communicate with my peers, and I'm trying to listen to dissenting voices, and I'm trying to listen to voices I trust too. And every single person is telling me something different, and I don't know what to do.
Okay, this right here is pretty confusing. He's saying that the voices are coming forward and are telling different stories and that he doesn't know what to do and that he needs help with this situation. Man, you think with a month's worth of victim stories and the many facts and details of what goes on in this vampire sex cult by account, you would think that this guy could tell the difference between what's accurate and what's false. I'm not saying that I don't believe in the victims of Camden, but there would have to be certain things for them to say that wouldn't line up with the truth. Like when Lyrics talks about it, when he said that the other victims were doxing the brother and mother of this Camden guy, I could believe that. Like, do they really think that doxing the family, leaking their personal information is gonna help bring more awareness of the story, other than Mamamax just hearing what they have to say and be like, oh yeah, it's horrible, sorry, I'm gonna help you with this? Honestly, I think Mamamax should take a moral grandstand and see if it's worth ruining other lives for the sake of trying to put one sexual predator away and tell the story of the victims. Like, who knows if the Camden family is involved to begin with? I'm not saying I don't believe the victim's story. I just think it's kind of ridiculous that they would ruin an innocent person's life over it. That's just my context I wanted to put in there.
People say, just wait for law enforcement to do something. But we've waited 7 years, and they haven't done anything. So we decided to just go public with it. People wanted evidence, so we've been inviting people to our little server where we have the evidence. But then people don't want to listen to the survivors when they're in there and just look at the evidence and conclude it's nothing.
It's not that we don't want to listen to the survivors. It's just that we want to know if their story is true or not. I personally believe that Spencer's story is true with the missing person poster and other stuff, but there's a possibility that whoever's on Mama Max's live streams or videos or Discord calls, they could just be making the stuff up for whatever reason. And Mamamax just uses whatever he's given to tell the situation as it is. But where does it come from? Is the story in contrast with how Camden acted in front of the other cult victims? You know what I mean?
Gerard Davis is a sexual predator and cult leader who victimized hundreds of minors on platforms like Kick and Whisper. His cult went by the Guild of Divinity, the Daemons, and Eon Syndicate, among other possible titles. Despite being reported to multiple different law enforcement agencies over the past 7 years, they are still active, brainwashing emotionally vulnerable children, predominantly preteen girls, into believing they are supernatural creatures like werewolves and vampires.
So yeah, he reads off a note on the phone saying how terrible of a person Camden is, saying that the cult is still active and he's still trying to brainwash people into believing they are werewolves, vampires, so he can do the sexual acts to minors for money gain. I'm gonna be honest here. This vampire sex cult thing is really fucked up, and I'm gonna have nightmares about it when I go to bed. But this Camden guy, this mastermind behind the whole thing, Why isn't he in jail? You'd think with all the stories that Mamamax has been told of what goes on in the cult, at least from Spencer's point of view, he would have told law enforcement officers by now to get justice done for the victims. Honestly, I think Mamamax is doing this vampire sex cult story for attention. By now, this Camden guy would have been in jail and sentenced to court, but I don't get why it's been 7 years and this cult is still active and this guy is brainwashing girls into believing they are vampires or werewolves, even when they said that they had to get law enforcement involved. Like, I don't know if this is truly law enforcement's part on having this case be prolonged, or if Mamamax is really doing this for the views and not to genuinely care about the victims of sexual abuse, because in the video of the apology there's a link to the financially help the victims of Camden. I clicked the link and it says fundraiser is not found.
Because survivors need more than just a voice. They need financial help.
Oh my god, this is like the fucking Logan Paul apology. Faking the tears and wanting a hug to gain sympathy points for himself. And not the victims here with the defunct GoFundMe page. That does it for me, man. I'm done. For real though, this whole thing, given the seriousness in this, should have been done by a detective or an investigative team that knows how to do this kind of work. Not this clout-chasing weeb that just profits off the victims of sexual abuse thanks to monetization gain on YouTube. I don't believe that this ad revenue video is going to the victims of Camden. Not for a second. So what can we learn from this? Well, it's clear that Mamamax now feels guilty about everything he's doing, with harassing the bigger creators and only minimum the whole context of the vampire sex cult, which I still think should be investigated by law enforcement. If the stories by the other victims are just bait for Mamamax, I wouldn't be surprised there. Honestly, I can't stand the fact that YouTubers like Mamamax will use serious situations just for themselves. This one is weird, I'll admit this, with the werewolves and whatever, but this is pedophilia and rape we are talking about. I understand that he wants to spread this message of being aware that this is a problem, but this isn't the way. Like, he should stop this right now, getting involved in this deeper. I'm sorry if this brings distress to the victims here, but he's handling this terribly. This could do more harm than good for people like Spencer. And for Mamamax, please get help. It's one thing to talk with a sexual assault survivor and, try to comfort them and try to support them in a way, but bringing justice all by yourself and you get overwhelmed and unsensible by it, that's just not right. If I took too long with this take, I apologize. My thoughts go to Spencer that has to deal with this baloney and all the other victims that are truly affected by this vampire sex cult thing, and let's hope that this Camden guy goes to jail because he's the real piece of shit. He's standing in that cult cave of his, laughing his ass off, watching Mamamax get shredded by everyone. He should be in jail, and I don't know why he isn't. But that's all I have to say. I'll see you on the next one. Good night.